Imagine a company worth $1 billion. Now, strip away the thousands of employees. Delete the sprawling office complexes. Erase the human resources departments, the payroll cycles, and the endless layers of middle management.
What remains? Just you, your vision, and a single screen. For the last 100 years,
we measured power by head count. Ford, GM, Disney, these giants were built on the backs of human armies. To grow, you hired. To innovate, you added more managers. That model was the bedrock of the 20th century.
Because human labor was the only engine capable of processing information at scale. But that era is effectively dead.
We are standing at the threshold of a radical shift where the traditional rules of corporate gravity no longer apply. You are no longer defined by how many people you can hire, but by the scale of the systems you can command. The billion-dollar startup is no longer a collective project. It is becoming a singular achievement. This is not some distant sci-fi fantasy. It is the immediate, rapidly approaching reality of the solo unicorn. If you could command $1 billion empire entirely on your own, would you still be playing by the old rules? The future is not about how many hands you have, but how effectively you can steer the machine. Picture your office. It has no walls, no desks, and no flickering fluorescent lights. Instead, it exists in the silent, humming architecture of code. You are no longer managing people. You are orchestrating an army of digital entities. These are not tools in the traditional sense, but autonomous agents that never sleep, never argue, and never require a paycheck. Imagine a customer support line that handles 10,000 inquiries simultaneously, each interaction perfectly tailored, infinitely patient, and lightning fast. Think of marketing assets, high-definition videos, and complex legal documentation generated in the time it takes to draw a single breath. Coding assistants work in the background, building, testing, and iterating software at speeds that would make a 1,000-person engineering team look like they are standing still. This is the new reality. Your workforce is a swarm of software, executing tasks with mathematical precision while you focus entirely on this mathematica. It is a strange alien landscape where the output of a small city is condensed into the singular intent of one person. The infrastructure is decentralized and invisible. You own the vision, you command the prompts, and the machine does the rest. It is not just efficient, it is a total transformation of how work gets done. Do not mistake this for a speculative forecast. The shift is already etched into the global economic ledger. We are witnessing the collapse of the traditional corporate perimeter, where once a multinational conglomerate required layers of physical offices, regional hubs, and thousands of human managers to maintain its footprint. A single creator now achieves the same reach from a laptop. This is not about efficiency. It is about the total dissolution of the old barriers to entry. Logistics chains are being optimized by algorithms that predict demand before the market even registers a pulse. Global distribution networks now respond to the strategic prompts of a single individual, serving millions of users without a single human intermediary on the payroll. The weight of this transition is immense. It forces a fundamental recalibration of what constitutes a high-impact organization. The infrastructure that sustained the industrial age is being dismantled in real time, replaced by lean, automated ecosystems. You are watching the bedrock of the 20th century economy shift beneath your feet. This is the new baseline. The age of the massive, human-heavy corporation is giving way to a leaner, sharper, and more relentless reality. The transition is not coming, it has arrived. The only question is who will lead in this new, unforgiving landscape. Define the new apex predator of the market, the solo unicorn. Imagine a company valued at $1 billion, yet it operates with a team of exactly one person. No sprawling headquarters, no HR departments to manage, and no internal politics. It is just you, your vision, and an army of invisible digital agents working in concert. This archetype represents the ultimate fusion of individual ambition and algorithmic scale. For the first time in history, the most valuable organizations on Earth will be built by individuals who master the art of machine orchestration. This is not a hobbyist project or a side gig. It is a high-impact, global empire. You are the architect, the strategist, and the sole operator. While the old world obsessed over headcount as the primary metric of strength, the solo unicorn thrives on an entirely different currency: agility. You command the machine, and the machine secures the market. It is a terrifyingly efficient model for those who can lead, and a complete obsolescence for those still clinging to the industrial era playbook. The goal is clear. You are not building a business to manage. You are building a system to dominate. The era of the one-person media and tech empire has officially begun. To understand where we are going, look back at the titans that defined the last century. Think of Ford, General Motors, or the sprawling infrastructure of the original media giants. Their success was not measured by the speed of their code, but by the sheer volume of their human workforce. They were industrial behemoths, built on the premise that strength meant mass. To scale, you had to hire. To innovate, you had to add layers of middle management. To maintain a global footprint, you had to build physical factories, regional offices, and complex HR departments. This was the only way to process information and execute tasks at scale before the digital age took root. The model was heavy, slow, and perpetually hungry for more labor. Success was defined by the size of the payroll and the number of desks filled. It was a world of punch clocks, rigid hierarchies, and endless logistical friction. But that era is effectively over. The metrics that once signaled dominance have become the very anchors dragging those companies into obsolescence. What was once the gold standard of corporate power now feels like a relic of a bygone, slower world. We are shedding the weight of the industrial machine to embrace a model that prioritizes intelligence over sheer human capacity. Why did we need thousands of people to build a car or operate a network? The answer lies in the limitations of the human mind as a processor of information. For decades, human labor was the only available engine for data transmission and task execution. If you wanted to scale, you had to replicate the human unit. Every department was essentially a human relay station, tasked with moving information from one desk to another, interpreting instructions, and manually executing shifts in strategy. This created a massive, unavoidable bottleneck. Information moved only as fast as a person could read, verify, and communicate it. Decision-making was delayed by the physical necessity of meetings, memos, and hierarchical verification. You could not scale faster than you could hire and train, because every new task required a new set of hands and a new brain to oversee it. This was not a choice. It was a physical constraint of the industrial age. We were limited by the biological speed of human cognition and the logistical reality of managing human fatigue. Every project was a race against the friction of human coordination. We built our entire corporate infrastructure to accommodate these biological limitations, creating a rigid system where the sheer volume of human bodies acted as a slow, expensive, and error-prone operating system for global commerce. The trap was subtle, yet absolute. As an organization expanded, the distance between the vision and the execution grew. To bridge this gap, companies invented the middle manager, a human bridge tasked with maintaining alignment across thousands of departments. But management is a voracious beast. It demands its own reports, its own meetings, and its own layers of verification. Innovation, once the primary goal, became secondary to the maintenance of the structure itself. The cycle was simple. Hire more people to solve problems, which created more communication friction, which required even more managers to coordinate the chaos. Decisions that should have taken seconds were buried under weeks of internal review. The energy of the company was consumed by the machinery of its own administration. It became a feedback loop of stagnation. Valuable talent spent their days not building, but justifying their existence through slide decks and status updates. The very systems designed to drive progress became the weight that anchored it to the ground. In this rigid hierarchy, the human element was no longer an asset. It was a source of constant, compounding latency. The bureaucracy did not just slow the company down, it slowly hollowed it out, leaving behind a husk of legacy processes that resisted any attempt at actual change. The breaking point arrived not with a crash, but with a quiet, systemic failure of the old logic. The weight of the hierarchy simply stopped producing value. It became impossible to ignore the friction.
Every memo felt like a relic, every meeting a waste of kinetic energy. The rules that governed the last century began to fray at the edges.
Investors stopped asking for headcount and started asking for leverage. The obsession with team size shifted, turning from a badge of strength into a mark of inefficiency. A new frequency began to emerge in the market. It was a digital vibration, faster, leaner, and entirely indifferent to the traditional structures of the past.
The old game of scaling through bodies was effectively over. A sudden, sharp realization cut through the boardrooms. The model that built the 20th century was now the very thing preventing progress in the 21st.
The air in the room changed. The obsession with managing people dissolved,
replaced by a desperate, hungry focus on building systems that could operate without them.
The era of the industrial behemoth reached its expiration date. The game had not just slowed down, it had fundamentally changed its nature, leaving the old players scrambling to find a footing on ground that was no longer solid. The vacuum left by the dying industrial model did not stay empty for long. A new architecture surged into the gap, fueled by a logic that bypassed the need for human consensus. This is the age of the algorithmic enterprise. It is a fundamental pivot in how value is produced, moving from the slow, physical coordination of thousands to the lightning-fast execution of code. In this new paradigm, the bottleneck is no longer human bandwidth or the friction of communication. It is the clarity of the instruction itself. Every process, every decision, and every output is now governed by digital systems that operate at a speed human organizations can never match. This transition feels inevitable, a tidal shift that makes the old ways of doing business look like relics from a different civilization. The power here is not derived from the size of a payroll, but from the precision of the orchestration. It is a relentless, high-velocity reality that demands immediate adaptation. The infrastructure of the economy is being rewritten in real time, and there is no turning back. The machines are ready, the systems are awake, and the mandate for the new century is clear. Build, optimize, and scale without the weight of human overhead. The era of the algorithmic enterprise has arrived, and it is absolute. Now, the power dynamic collapses into a single point, you. Standing at the terminal of this new reality, you no longer hire. You activate. A suite of specialized AI agents waits in the digital ether, designed to execute complex tasks with surgical precision. You initiate a command, and the machine breathes. A research agent scrapes global data, a creative agent drafts the campaign, and a logic agent stress tests the code, all in the time it takes to draw a breath. This is the moment of total empowerment. The latency between thought and execution vanishes. You feel the surge of 1,000 hands moving at your direction.
Yet the room remains silent. There is no friction of ego, no delay of committee, and no fatigue in the workforce.
You are the architect of a silent, tireless labor force that functions exactly as instructed. You watch the screen as the agents weave a complex output, their processes interlocking with mathematical grace. The sensation is absolute control. You are no longer a manager of people, but a conductor of capability, steering the flow of information with every deliberate prompt. The bottleneck of human limitation has been severed. You are free to build at the speed of your own ambition, fueled by a digital army that never sleeps. Consider what you have just unleashed. In the old world, to achieve this level of output, You would need a small city of employees. You would need a sprawling office complex, endless rows of desks, and a labyrinth of middle management to keep the gears turning. You would face the constant drag of training, the friction of human error, and the inevitable decay of morale. It was a massive, clunky machine of flesh and blood, requiring a payroll that could sink a startup before it even found its footing. Now, look at your screen. That same productivity, that same volume of high-level output is generated by you alone. The contrast is stark, bordering on the surreal. You are effectively performing the work of a 1,000-person department while sitting in a quiet room. The efficiency gap is not just a marginal gain. It is a total, seismic shift in the physics of production. Where a corporation once spent weeks coordinating teams and reconciling reports, you execute in a fraction of a heartbeat. The industrial behemoth has been rendered invisible by the sheer, unyielding speed of your digital architecture. You are not just working harder. You are operating on an entirely different plane of existence, where the necessity of a physical workforce has simply evaporated. Now, imagine the front line of your empire. In any traditional business, this is where the cracks appear first. Thousands of customers arrive at once, each with a unique demand, a different grievance, or a complex question. A human team would be drowning. The phones would be screaming. The queues would stretch into hours, and the friction of fatigue would inevitably erode the quality of every interaction. Your agents do not know fatigue. They handle 5,000 inquiries in the exact same second, each response tailored with surgical accuracy. A customer in London asks a technical question. A user in Tokyo requests a refund. A client in New York demands a status update. The system processes them all simultaneously, maintaining a tone of perfect, unruffled composure. There is no annoyance, no loss of temper, and no drop in clarity, even as the volume surges to 10 times the original capacity. You watch the logs scroll past. The machine is not just solving problems. It is absorbing chaos and outputting order. It is a level of service that no human workforce could replicate, regardless of size or training. The patience is not a virtue here. It is a feature of the architecture. You have replaced the volatility of human emotion with the unwavering consistency of code. The pace of your operation does not merely accelerate, it becomes instantaneous. While your support agents handle the incoming flood, your creative engines ignite. You trigger a command for a global marketing campaign. The system does not pause to brainstorm or deliberate. It pulls from a vast, latent intelligence, synthesizing data into finished assets within seconds. You see a high-definition video sequence render in the time it takes to draw a single breath. Simultaneously, a dozen technical manuals and hundreds of personalized marketing messages materialize, polished and ready for distribution. There is no waiting for feedback loops or rounds of revisions. The momentum is absolute. Where a creative firm would spend weeks drafting storyboards and filming scenes, your architecture outputs the entire campaign before the request is even fully parsed. You are watching the collapse of the time-to-market cycle. Every asset is generated with surgical precision, tailored to specific demographics, and pushed to your global channels in a synchronized heartbeat. It is a relentless, unstoppable flow of production. You are no longer managing a creative process. You are commanding a torrent of digital output that never sleeps, never hesitates, and never misses a deadline. The speed is not just an advantage. It is a weapon of scale.
This is not merely outsourcing. Do not confuse the efficiency of these systems with the temporary cost-saving measure cast.
Outsourcing was about moving labor to cheaper hands. This is about removing the hands entirely. You are witnessing the total digital transformation of work. Look at the structures that define the last century, the recruitment agencies, the training programs, the vast HR departments designed to manage human friction. They are becoming architectural debt. As your agents iterate and refine your operations, the need for a traditional workforce evaporates. You are not just replacing a task, you are rewriting the definition of a career path. Consider the thousands of individuals whose professional lives were built on managing data, verifying compliance, or facilitating communication. Those roles are being absorbed into the logic of the machine. The barrier to entry for building a massive enterprise has collapsed.
But so has the necessity for human participation in the process.
You are standing at the edge of a fundamental rupture in the social contract of employment. It is a quiet, cold, and irreversible transition. Your systems do not require benefits, they do not require office space, and they never demand a raise. You have moved beyond the need for a team, and in doing so, you have rendered the old model of corporate growth obsolete. The scale of your ambition now dictates the market, not the size of your payroll. For decades, the global giants relied on their sheer mass to crush competition, believing that 1,000 employees equated to 1,000 miles of defensive moat. They were wrong. You are now the insurgent in their boardroom. While they struggle to coordinate across time zones and departments, you are a singular point of execution, moving at the speed of light. They are weighed down by the very human infrastructure that once made them strong. Every decision they make requires consensus, meetings, and bureaucratic navigation. You make a single change to your prompt, and your entire operation pivots in milliseconds. This is not just a change in strategy. It is a total inversion of the David and Goliath dynamic. The giant cannot pivot fast enough to avoid your strikes. You are hitting global markets with the precision of a scalpel, while they swing with the sluggish force of a sledgehammer. They have the legacy, the brand, and the buildings, but they lack the agility to survive in a landscape where intelligence is automated. You are no longer competing against other individuals. You are competing against the inertia of corporations that have yet to realize they are already obsolete. The ground beneath them is shifting, and for the first time in history, the smallest player in the room is the one who holds all the leverage. The sun sets, the world sleeps, but your enterprise never blinks. While you rest, your digital entities are hard at work, navigating the complexities of global logistics with cold, mathematical precision. Imagine the scene: millions of transactions firing across continents, inventory levels adjusting in real time, and customer inquiries resolved before the human on the other end even realizes they needed help. You are no longer managing a team, you are observing a pulse. Your role has shifted to the heartbeat of the architecture, monitoring the dashboards, watching the data flow, and ensuring the algorithms remain aligned with your core vision. There is an intensity to this silence. You watch the numbers climb, the markets shift, and the supply chains tighten, all orchestrated by scripts that never tire, never complain, and never miss a deadline. This is not automation in the traditional sense. This is the construction of a self-sustaining organism. You are serving millions of users across every time zone simultaneously, maintaining a level of responsiveness that would cripple any human-led department. The sheer scale of the operation is staggering, yet it unfolds with the quiet efficiency of a ticking clock. You are the architect of a machine that functions better in your absence than it ever could under your direct, manual supervision. The work is constant, the reach is global, and the machine is relentless. The title of manager has become a relic of a dying era. You look at your screen, and you do not see subordinates who need direction, oversight, or motivation. You see nodes, subroutines, and logic gates. This is the breakthrough. You are not a boss. You are an orchestrator. Your value no longer resides in how well you command people, but in how precisely you tune the systems that replace them. You stop thinking in terms of tasks and start thinking in terms of architecture. Each prompt you write acts as a rule set that governs 1,000 individual processes. You are defining the environment where work happens, not the work itself. When a glitch appears, you do not call a meeting. You refactor the logic. When a process slows, you do not hire more help. You optimize the data flow. This is a cold, calculated shift in identity. You have traded the messiness of human interpersonal dynamics for the absolute reliability of code. You are the architect of a system that governs itself, requiring only your vision to steer its trajectory. The role of the human leader has been stripped of its traditional burdens, leaving only the pure, distilled essence of direction. You do not manage. You set the parameters of reality. You are the conductor of an invisible orchestra, and the music is pure, automated output. Theory alone is a phantom, but here, the architecture becomes visible. Consider the template provided by platforms like LITTYVERSE. It is not just a company. It is an integrated AI-powered ecosystem that functions as a single, cohesive unit. You look at its structure and realize the industrial behemoths of the past are obsolete. They were built on layers of management, whereas LITTYVERSE thrives on layers of logic. It proves that you do not need a vast workforce to deliver massive value. You need a lean, agile architecture that captures, processes, and distributes information at the speed of thought. When you analyze its operations, you see the blueprint for the next decade. It handles complex, multifaceted tasks without a single human supervisor on the payroll. This is the proof of concept that changes everything. It demonstrates that the infrastructure is now decentralized, accessible, and ready for you to inhabit. You no longer need to own the supply chain or the physical distribution network. You own the vision, the prompts, and the code that steers the engine. This is the new standard. The shift is no longer a prediction. It is an existing, functional reality that is currently rewriting the rules of corporate scale. You are looking at the future of the unicorn, and it is built on the foundation of single-founder mastery. The walls between industries have dissolved. What was once a fragmented landscape of content, gaming, and education is now a singular, breathing ecosystem. Imagine a user entering this space to learn a skill, only for that process to pivot instantly into an immersive, game-based simulation. The AI does not pause. It weaves the media, the mechanics, and the curriculum into a seamless thread. This is not integration in the traditional sense. It is a fusion. Every interaction within the platform feeds back into the engine, refining the content, leveling up the challenge, and tailoring the educational path in milliseconds. You observe the data streams colliding and realize the sheer scale is no longer an obstacle. It is the fuel. The system handles the heavy lifting of user engagement, logistics, and feedback loops simultaneously. It is a revolutionary explosion of efficiency. You are no longer building a product. You are manifesting an environment that evolves with every click. The barrier between creator and consumer vanishes as the machine synthesizes their needs into a continuous, high-impact experience. This is the new architecture of value, a hyper-connected, autonomous engine that operates at a scale previously reserved for entire corporations, now contained within a single, elegant ecosystem. The weight of the old world is gone. For decades, institutional power was measured in the thousands of bodies filling office chairs, but that metric has collapsed. Now, value is not measured by headcount, but by the precision of your architectural intent. A lean, AI-driven framework delivers more impact in a single day than a legacy firm produces in a fiscal quarter. You watch the data, you see the reach, and you realize the institution is no longer the predator, it is the prey. The individual founder is no longer an underdog fighting for scraps. They are the architect of a system that renders traditional complexity obsolete. This is the ultimate validation. You hold the controls, you steer the machine, and you witness the output of a global empire manifesting through your singular vision. The institution relied on layers of human friction to slow progress. Your architecture relies on the speed of light. This is not just a change in technology. It is a fundamental shift in the nature of human agency. You are the proof that a single mind, amplified by the right digital entities, carries more weight than an entire department of managers. The era of the giant is over. The age of the solo unicorn has begun, and the lean architecture is the weapon that makes it inevitable. The physical world no longer anchors your potential. For centuries, industry demanded the ownership of assets, massive server farms, sprawling warehouses, and complex, fragile supply chains. That era of heavy, static hardware has ended. You do not need the servers. You do not need the shipping lines. You do not need to own the infrastructure that keeps the world turning. The moment you stop trying to own the means of production, the entire landscape changes. It is a sudden, sharp release of pressure. You shed the maintenance, the logistical nightmares, and the permanent overhead that once suffocated innovation. By offloading these burdens to the decentralized network, you reclaim the one resource that matters, your own focus. This is not just a strategic pivot. It is a profound liberation of human capability. You are no longer a manager of physical things. You are a navigator of digital currents. The barrier to entry has not just been lowered, it has been vaporized. You feel the weight of the old industrial age fall away, leaving you with nothing but the raw, unhindered speed of your own intelligence. The system is no longer your master, it is your extension, operating in the background so you can finally move at the speed of thought. If you do not own the hardware, what remains? You, your vision, and the prompts that breathe life into the machine. Everything else is just noise. The industry spent decades obsessing over logistics, but those are merely the background hum of the old world. You have stripped away the excess until you are left with the core, pure, unadulterated intent. This is the peak of your agency. You no longer spend your hours untangling supply chains or managing server capacity. You spend them refining the logic, sharpening the goal, and articulating the precise command that steers the digital workforce. It is a moment of total clarity. You see the global machine, you see the outcome, and you realize that your primary tool is language itself. A single, well-crafted prompt can initiate a sequence that spans continents and serves millions. You are no longer a cog in the industry. You are the source code of your own empire. The vision is the asset. The prompt is the execution. Everything else is a distraction you have finally learned to ignore. You stand at the center of a vast, automated intelligence, and for the first time, you have nothing left to do but direct the flow of your own genius. Look at the horizon. The next decade will not be defined by the sprawl of massive corporations, but by the rise of the one-person media empire. You are looking at a future where a single individual commands the reach of a global network, broadcasting value that touches millions every second. Imagine a company with a valuation in the billions, yet it possesses no headquarters, no board of directors, and no payroll. It is a lean, living entity fueled by the precision of artificial intelligence. This is not a distant dream. It is the inevitable trajectory of the solo founder. You are moving toward a world where your influence scales exponentially with your intent. One person can now produce, distribute, and monetize entire ecosystems of content and service, operating at a velocity that makes the titans of the 20th century look like stone statues in a hurricane. You will see these entities emerge in every corner of the digital space. They are agile, they are relentless, and they are built on the foundation of individual genius amplified by a synthetic workforce. The era of the industrial behemoth is giving way to the era of the solo unicorn. You are not just building a business. You are constructing a high-impact legacy that operates while you sleep, reaching across borders, languages, and cultures with the push of a button. The throne of the new economy is singular, and it is waiting for those who master the art of the machine. The walls that once guarded the gates of industry have crumbled. Think about the capital it used to take to launch a global movement. Years of fundraising, endless negotiations, the crushing weight of overhead, all of that is vanishing. The barrier to entry is not just lowering, it is plummeting into the ground. You no longer need permission from a venture firm or a massive infrastructure budget to compete with the giants. The tools to build a world-class organization are now accessible to anyone with a terminal and an idea. This is the great democratization of power. The friction that once slowed the ambitious to a crawl has been stripped away. You can go from zero to global reach in a time frame that would have been considered impossible only a few years ago. This is not a gradual change. It is a sudden, violent shift in the landscape. The gatekeepers who once controlled the flow of commerce are finding themselves obsolete, sidelined by individuals who can execute faster, cheaper, and with greater precision. The opportunity is not coming, it is here. It is waiting for you to pick up the tools and start the engine. The window is wide open, and the cost of entry has never been lower. Those who hesitate will watch the landscape transform from the sidelines, while those who act will define the new reality. The most valuable companies on Earth will not be built by those who simply use machines. They will be forged by those who master the art of orchestration. Think of your AI waiting for the clarity of your intent. The difference between a struggling startup and a billion-dollar empire will come down to one thing: the precision of your commands.
You are the conductor of a silent, synthetic symphony.
Every prompt you refine, every system you link, and every logic loop you tighten is a structural advantage that no competitor can easily replicate. Mastery of orchestration is the new competitive edge. It is the ability to see the architecture of a global operation in your mind and breathe life into it through code and query. This is the new high ground of industry. The individuals who realize that their own intelligence is the primary bottleneck will be the ones who shatter the ceiling. They will stop looking for more human hands and start building better digital minds. This is not about working harder. It is about directing the infinite capacity of the artificial workforce with absolute, unwavering intent. The tools are ready. The systems are waiting. The only variable left is the depth of your mastery. Start building the architecture of your vision now. For a century, we were taught a lie. We believed that size equaled strength. We measured success by the head count, the floor space, and the sheer volume of bodies in the building. That era is dead. Today, a massive, sluggish corporation is not a fortress. It is a target. It is bloated by its own inertia, unable to pivot, unable to iterate, and unable to compete with the sheer velocity of a single, focused mind. The industrial age celebrated the behemoth, but the age of the solo unicorn demands the predator. Agility is the new currency. It is the ability to shift direction in milliseconds, to reconfigure your entire operation based on real-time data, and to outmaneuver the giants without breaking a sweat. Intelligence is the engine, but agility is the steering. If you are still trying to build a fortress, you are already building a tomb. The world no longer rewards the biggest, it rewards the fastest, the smartest, and the most adaptable. You do not need thousands of people to build a monument to your vision. You need a lean, brutal, and intelligent architecture that reacts to change before your competitors even register the shift. Size is a relic. Adaptability is the only survival strategy left. The friction of the old world is fading. As the software layers mature and the robotics bridge the gap to the physical, the distinction between a startup and a global empire begins to dissolve. It is no longer about distinct departments or separate functions. It is about a singular, living architecture. The machines are learning to handle the weight of execution, while the physical world becomes more responsive to digital inputs. We are witnessing the end of the divide. A small operation can now exert the same influence as a historical giant, not because it has conquered more territory, but because it has mastered the underlying medium of the age. Watch the lines blur. The complexity that once required thousands of minds is now being handled by fluid, self-optimizing systems. The noise of the industrial struggle is settling into a quiet, humming efficiency. You can feel the shift in the air. The structures that once defined our professional lives are becoming transparent, leaving behind only the pure, distilled intent of the creator. The landscape is changing, and as the dust settles, the true shape of the future begins to emerge. It is lean, it is quiet, it is absolute, The ceiling of your ambition is no longer defined by the people you can find, hire, or manage. That constraint, which defined the struggle of every entrepreneur for centuries, is simply gone.
You no longer wake up worrying about payroll, training, or the slow, inevitable friction of human coordination.
The weight of that responsibility has been lifted. In its place is a profound, quiet space. You are free to move at the speed of your own thought. This is not just a change in business strategy. It is a fundamental expansion of your personal agency.
You are no longer chained to the logistical anchor of a workforce.
You are unburdened. Every idea you conceive can now be translated directly into action through the systems you command. There is a specific kind of silence in this realization, the peace of knowing that your reach is limited only by your own imagination. The anxiety of scaling has been replaced by the rhythm of creation. You are standing in a field of infinite possibility, where the only boundary is the clarity of your own intent. You are not building a company. You are architecting a legacy of pure, unhindered progress. The era of the hiring limit is over, and the era of the individual architect has finally arrived. Freedom is only the beginning. Now comes the work of command. Your success in this new landscape depends entirely on how effectively you can direct the machines you build. The technology is a vast, dormant ocean, waiting for the currents of your intent to give it direction. If your vision is blurred, the output will falter. If your logic is precise, the system will scale with terrifying efficiency. You are the architect, the pilot, and the final judge. Every prompt you refine, every workflow you automate, and every system you optimize is a direct extension of your own capability. This is not a passive role. It requires a new kind of discipline, the ability to distill complex problems into clear, executable logic that your digital agents can interpret. You are the heartbeat of the operation. The machines do not think, they execute. They do not dream, they iterate. They rely on your clarity to bridge the gap between a raw idea and a global impact. Your responsibility is to sharpen the tools, define the parameters, and steer the machine with intent. The power is in your hands, but the burden of direction is yours alone. Master the art of orchestration, and you command the future. The horizon is no longer distant. It is here, waiting for the first step. You stand at the threshold of a new epoch, where the distinction between one person and a global empire has finally dissolved. The artificial workforce is not a replacement for your ambition. It is the physical manifestation of your will. Every algorithm, every automated process, and every digital agent is a limb of your intent, acting in concert across the world. You are the conductor of this silent, tireless symphony. This is the ultimate expression of individual power. When you learn to lead this workforce, you stop being a participant in the market and start defining its very parameters. The future does not belong to the largest organizations or the deepest pockets. It belongs to the individual who can synthesize vision with machine intelligence. This is your reality to craft. The tools are ready, the systems are waiting, and the scale is yours to command. You are the architect of your own destiny, and the world is the canvas upon which you will leave your mark. Own the vision, direct the machine, lead the future. The era of the solo unicorn has begun, and you are its pilot.